You're watching Car Nitty. My name's Mizan, and today I've got a JDM car for you guys. It's been quite a while since I last had a Japanese car on the channel, but here it is. It's a 7th generation Toyota Celica. Now if you're British, you're going to call it a Celica, but if you're from the other side of the Atlantic, you're probably going to call it a Celica. No, that's not how we do it in the UK, alright? It's Celica. So the Celica's been around for quite a while. Production started around 1970 and it ended in 2006. It's had quite a few generations during that period and different setups as well. This is obviously a two-door sports car, front engine and front wheel drive. In the previous generation, you could get a four-wheel drive version of this car. That was obviously a front engine car as well. And prior to that, in the first few generations when this car launched, there was a rear-wheel drive variant. So this car's really been around and it's had pretty much every configuration you can think of. Let's now talk about price. Now, a 7th generation T230 Celica is going to cost you from around £1,000 onwards. That's quite cheap for a sporty looking car as this. You wouldn't think that a car that looks as menacing as this can be bought for so cheap. But there is one thing to bear in mind. The ones that are going to be the cheaper price ones are going to be the 1ZZ engine car. They produce 140 brake horsepower. This one is the T-Sport and that has more performance, which I'm going to cover now. In terms of performance, this car has got a 1.8 litre 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engine. Now this car has got what Toyota call VVTI, which stands for Variable Valve Timing Intelligence. Now that works very similar to the way VTEC works for Honda cars. This car has got 190 brake horsepower and 180 Newton meters of torque. Now that's quite low in the torque department if I'm being honest with you, but something that's quite understandable for an NA car of this period. It's paired with a 6-speed manual gearbox and it sends its power to the front wheels. There's two variants of the Celica. We've got the 1ZZ engine, as I mentioned earlier. Now this is the T-Sport. This has got 190 brake horsepower compared to 140 on the other one. They're both the same displacement, it's just that this one pushes a lot more power. I bet you're wondering if this car is stock or not. So it has got some modifications, but they're quite subtle. It looks like it's been modded up, but funnily enough it hasn't. So let me talk about them. This car's got TRD badging on the car, which stands for Toyota Racing Development, similar to what GR is for the Toyota brand today. A TRD gear knob, TRD spoiler, and a custom exhaust, custom headlights which are Spec D, and an aftermarket induction kit. That's it. I think it's time to go for a drive and see what this is like. So guys, you now join me in the Celica, and it's just me today. The owner's a bit camera shy, unfortunately. He doesn't want to be on camera, but you can see his arm there on the edge of the camera, so he's still very much here. One thing about this car is the clutch has to be fully engaged for you to be able to change the gear. If you do not fully engage the clutch, the car is making clunky noises, the gearbox, it's not going to go into gear. It's quite weird. I don't think I've ever driven a car that requires that much force on the clutch pedal, because what it is with the clutch is it has a long throw, so when you press down on it, it has a longer kick basically than a normal clutch, if that makes sense. The other thing as well to bear in mind is this gear knob is blank, so guys, don't judge me, alright? Don't judge me, please. It's always daunting to get into a car, a manual car, when you're so used to automatics, but on top of that, it's more crazy when you jump into a car and the gear knob is blank. But the good thing about this gear knob is it's identical to a manual BMW gearbox. So reverse, you've got to really throw it in the top left hand corner. What can I tell you about the car itself? I don't feel very comfortable, and the reason for that is because of the clutch. As I mentioned, I need to put down all the way, fully engage it. I'm 5'10". I'm not tall, I'd say I'm average height. So the problem I've got is my knees are quite bent at the moment, like crunched, because I need to be able to fully engage the clutch, but at the same time I want to sit back a bit more, like my knees are I can't win basically. I can't have it both ways. On top of that, the steering rack doesn't allow you to pull the wheel out forward and backwards. I can only go up and down. Now that's the same in a Toyota Prius that I just reviewed, my dad's one. So clearly this is a Toyota thing, isn't it? They seem to forget the mechanism that allows the wheel to go frontwards and backwards. In terms of sitting in the car itself, there is a sporty feeling. You can tell you're driving a sports car. It doesn't feel like you're driving a normal car at all, and you are sitting very low to the ground. I mean, I speak about a lot in all my videos. I like sitting low to the ground, but it's different when the car itself is low. Okay, forget your seat, the car itself is low. So I'm literally so flat on the floor to get in and out the car. It's like, let's just say if I was a woman, I wouldn't be wearing a skirt if I drove this car. In terms of noise and drone, this car is pretty decent. It's not overly obnoxious. I mean, I'm only in gear 4 right now and I'm doing 40 miles per hour. I'm now gonna go into gear 5 and the car doesn't drone. I was expecting this car to drone, but I think because of the 6 gears, it's going to be quite decent, I think, on longer journeys. In terms of torque, I'll be honest, I'm not feeling the lack of torque. I mean, I forgot to find out how much this car weighs, but I don't think it weighs a lot. And I can really get the feeling that this car is made to be thrown around. Like, you can have a lot of fun throwing this car around a bend. This car, if you ask me, is a bit of a sheep in wolf's clothing. It's not the fastest thing on the road, no way, but it looks like it could probably break a Guinness World Record, doesn't it? And that's the beauty of a Celica, isn't it? It's something so obnoxious, yet it doesn't have the credentials to be obnoxious, but it's still a very enjoyable, fun car. And I'm very happy that this is a T-Sport model, because I think the 140 brake horsepower will be very, very underwhelming. There is some proper steering feedback with this. Like, there is a lot of feedback. I can pinpoint where my front wheels are right now, and there's just no play. And I really, really like this. This is a very analog experience, something that we just don't get in the modern era of cars. Being a Japanese car, the interior is very, very basic. I mean, very basic. It's just, it's below standards, that's by far. But in a car that's as raw as this, I guess you can really appreciate what this car offers, which is the driving experience. So I really like it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I am seeing some cues from the Toyota Prius. I mean, even the fuel tank cap, it's on the floor, so it does feel a lot like a Prius, but that just goes to show Toyota are a bit, you know, they don't put as much time in the interior as they maybe should have. But hey, you get what you pay for, right? All right, got a bit of a tunnel here. I think I'm gonna downshift into 3rd. Okay, there's the lack of torque. I love the front wheel drive. That was fun. There's nothing like feeling the front wheels are fighting with you as you go around the bend. I honestly really, really like that. This gear knob does feel really good. It's not a short shift or anything like that, but when you are sitting close to the clutch, obviously, because I have to fully engage it, it does really clunk into gear. It does feel, there is some real feedback from that gear knob. I'm very surprised at how good it feels, because I'll be honest with you, the Celica is a weird car for me, because when I think about JDM cars, we think of the R34 Skyline GTR, we think about Toyota Supra, and this is just a 1.8, and you just think to yourself, nah, forget about it, Celica. I mean, even a 350Z will come into your brain before one of these. But I'm very, very surprised at the way this car feels. This is a genuine good comparison to what, I don't know, I think I might get ostracized as I say it, but a DC5, all right, an Integra, because that's another coupe, isn't it? And that's got VTEC, the K20 engine, like the Type R's. But think about how much a DC5 will cost you. Am I right in saying that this is a DC5 equivalent in the Toyota lineup?
Yeah. It
is. So I just guessed that and I was right. So for argument's sake, this car is potentially Toyota's version of the DC5.
And full independence as well.
And it's got fully independent rear suspension as well, the owner tells me, like the EP3 does. Now, one thing about this owner is he loves his Japanese cars. He loves them to death. He's had one German car. He had an Audi S3 8P, which he did not like. And he's had lots of Japanese cars. And one car he's had 2 versions of is an FN2 Type R. He's had them both in red. He just really, really loves his Japanese cars. And I think for him, he just suits having naturally aspirated cars, because there's nothing like bouncing the rev limiter, and you can't really do that in a turbocharged car. And if you look at the price of a DC5, as I've just said, the thing is, they are imports. You never got one here in the UK, so they're all imports. But the starting price is around 10 grand. So if you think about a Celica, you know, about 2 grand or 3 grand, sounds like an absolute bargain when you consider what you're getting for your money, isn't it? I mean, VVTI isn't in the same league as VTEC for a lot of people. People just don't rate it as much as VTEC. but I still think it's pretty cool. I mean, it's that BMW had Vanos in the 2000s for their naturally aspirated cars. I'm doing 40 miles per hour and he wants me to downshift into second gear
all the way to 8.
and I'm on 4,000 RPM. Oh wow, the noise just, it's like a flared noise, isn't it? It just opens up at you. I really like these cars, man. I mean, everyone that watches Car Nitty knows I am not a 4-cylinder man. It's just not for me. But if there was a 4-cylinder that I would get on with, it'd have to be something with VTEC or VVTI now, isn't it? Because there has to be a sensation for revving the car out. There has to be a reward for doing so, and this car does that. I want to do it again. I mean, I don't care, there's no time, so I mean, I'm not gonna slow myself down. I'm gonna go into gear 3, I think. 4,000 RPM. I'm gonna wait for the road to clear up in front of me. Look, it's opened. You know what? I think I need a tire power or something in my life. I'm doing it again, I don't care. Gear 3. Gear 3. Wait. Oh, it just opens up at 6. Oh my god. And the car is so nimble. It's so nimble. I mean, you can really throw it around the bend. And before I came out and reviewed this car, I did a bit of research into it, and people were complaining that this car isn't torquey enough, right? But they were saying that that's almost a benefit of the car, because under 4,000 RPM, because the car isn't so torquey, apparently it's aimed towards fuel economy. So when you really think about it, if you want to have a bit of a hoon and be a hooligan, all you have to do is just redline it, and then VVTI comes out, and it's just such a great experience. But when you want to just drive economically, you just short shift, and there's no drone, as I've said. I'm not seeing any negative points with this car yet, I'll be honest with you, and I am quite a glass half empty kind of person. So when it comes to something that doesn't suit my needs or desires, I am quite blunt about them. But I'm driving this and I can't really see any. I honestly think Japanese manufacturers make the best 4-cylinder engines by far. By far. I mean, I've driven how many German 4-cylinders, and I always walk out there and say, yeah, they're good for what they are, but blah, blah, blah. Not had any complaints with this, have I? I'm gonna say it, I'm enjoying this car more than the Nissan 350Z I reviewed. And I said it. I said it. Everyone knows I'm a displacement man, and I'm saying I prefer this 1.8 litre naturally aspirated lump to a 3.5 litre V6 in the Nissan 350Z. That goes against every single one of my core beliefs, but that's the way I feel. Now the question is, why do I feel that way? It's because of the feeling of revving out a car. The 350Z has a red line limit at 6,500 RPM. So it's a very lazy V6 engine. But this, you can rev it out completely, and I can really, really enjoy that. And I want to do it again, man. I want to do it again. Second gear. You know what? I think I need to buy a Type R. And if I bought one, it would not be a modern turbocharged one. No way in hell. I'm going to be buying an EP3 or an FN2, but it has to be. And I don't think I could live with the impracticality of this car. Now, when I drove an EP3 on the channel, because that was a Premier Edition car, and the owner, that was his pride and joy. I mean, if you watch that video, you can see by his face that CJ just was done third gear.
Yeah.
I just pulled out of a junction in third gear. And that's because the gear knob is blank, but also, wow, I'm surprised he managed to do that. That says a lot about my clutch control. I'm good at manual cars, all right? But on a serious note, CJ was very protective of his car, as you can watch the video, which I can appreciate, because that's his pride and joy. I have no problems with it. But Jan drives his cars like he stole it. That's Jan for you. So I know I've been able to drive it in the manner that I have, and Jan has no issues. I went with the public consensus that our Celica was fairly slow and nothing special. Something that looked more sporty in the way it drove. But after having driven it, I beg to differ. It offers a lot for the price they're worth. Typically speaking, a coupe should be worth more than a hatchback, but this Celica GT Sport is worth around the same as a low-end FN2 Type R, which is also a whole generation newer, and that's the least loved flagship Civic. It's crazy that Honda never offered the DC5 in the UK, which means that all imports are Type Rs, as there was no point importing a Type S, and I wonder what they would be worth on our shores in comparison to the Celica. Is a like-for-like DC5 a better car, or is the Celica just plagued with distaste by those that have never even driven it? Unfortunately, the history books will state the last generation Celica wasn't a success, and it's not remembered fondly by all. I hope after this review, if you see one, you'll respect them a whole lot more, and perhaps you'll get to even drive one. If you enjoyed this review, please remember to like, comment, share and subscribe, and we'll see you soon for the next one. Take care.